not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter, will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you'll be liable to the council. And if you say, you fool, you'll be liable to the hell of fire. So when you're offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you're on the way to court with him, or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you'll be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you'll never get out until you've paid the last penny.
Well, Jenny, that's just part of a very long gospel for this Sunday. I'm always a little uncomfortable when we start reading in the Sermon on the Mount, because it's so easy to pick out little bits and pieces and not see the passage in its whole context. First, in the context of the sermon, which we must remember begins with the Beatitudes, but also in the context of Matthew's Gospel as a whole. So that would be sort of my opening remarks on this passage, that we need to remember it's part of a bigger thing.
I suppose, yeah, that whole idea that this is the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and so he's already out there doing things, and this is sort of almost like a manifesto, really, for Matthew, isn't it?
Of his preaching of the kingdom.
Yes, yes. So, and I think that's quite helpful, because I think often we can sort of read this stuff and think, oh my goodness, you know, I just don't know where to start, the standard's too high, and to keep that idea of these are the values of the kingdom, which it's sort of a goal to work towards.
And that's that we are working towards. I think that's really important. And also that very opening verse, do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. Matthew we generally think of as writing into a Jewish context, actually to those people that he then criticises, the scribes and the Pharisees, the holy church-going people of his day. And perhaps that's why it's so uncomfortable for us, because if we are serious about it, or if we're honest about it, actually a lot of the criticism that is levelled at the scribes and Pharisees can be levelled at those of us who are regular churchgoers, and that's not very comfortable. Yeah,
and the idea that it's sort of nitpicky, and that we're sort of fussing about things that don't really matter, or and so often I think, because we do get all these, you know, the way it's divided up, talking about anger and adultery and divorce and oaths and all this sort of stuff, we can sort of get, you know, we can pick it out and then fight among ourselves about, you know, what we think it all means. But I really like that word fulfill, that in fact Jesus is, it's something that's leading to fulfillment and wholeness and perhaps a better way of living, you know.
And to follow that up, if we were going to focus in on a particular area, I think for me it's verses 23 and 24. This idea of when you're about to bring your gift to the altar and then remember there's somebody you have a grievance or your brother has a grievance, first go and sort it out. And that's not always easy to do.
And I think that's partly why we have the peace before we go to Eucharist, with the idea that you're not actually just sort of saying, well, how are you, or what did you do last night? But, you know, if there are actually things between us, that we get those sorted out. I'm not sure that we always use it as that, but
we don't.
But I like the idea that we actually, our worship's really fruitless if we're not actually sorted out with those we're worshipping with.
And that's true of any Christian tradition, isn't it? That one of the early comments about Christians was see how they love each other, and that cannot be if there is this unresolved tension between, not only between individuals, I think, but the real challenge is when it goes bigger than that, or when we allow ourselves to look at bigger picture than that.
Yeah.
So, some challenging stuff here.
Yeah, there is.
In the context of those Beatitudes, blessed are the poor, the meek, the sorrowing, the hungry, and so on, as Jesus begins to work out what he means by this kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, challenging stuff.